Imagine finding an ordinary-looking French coin in an old collection, a drawer, or even a box of loose change, only to discover that its story reaches back to one of the most important turning points in French history. Now imagine that the same coin has a tiny detail that most people would completely overlook, a feature that could separate a common collectible from a much more desirable numismatic piece. Welcome back to Coin Collection 1, where we uncover the history, mysteries, and hidden details behind coins from around the world. Today, we are traveling to France and taking a close look at the 1989 French 1 franc coin, a fascinating piece connected to the bicentenary of the French Revolution and the historic convocation of the Estates General. Some online claims place exceptional examples at values as high as $1,000, but before you start searching through every old coin you own, there is an important story behind that number. The ordinary 1989 circulation coin is not generally a $1,000 coin. Its real interest comes from its history, its design, its condition, and the possibility of unusual varieties, errors, or special issues. So stay with me until the end, because we are going to examine what this coin really is, why collectors look for it, how to identify it correctly, what the mysterious F designation may actually mean, and under what circumstances a 1989 French 1 franc could become genuinely valuable. The year 1989 was an extraordinary year for France. Exactly 200 years had passed since 1789, the year that witnessed the convocation of the Estates General and the beginning of the revolutionary events that would transform France and influence political history far beyond its borders. The French Revolution remains one of the most studied and debated events in world history, and in 1989, France marked its bicentennial with major national celebrations, exhibitions, commemorations, and special coinage. The 1989 1 franc Estates General coin belongs to this historical atmosphere. It was not simply another piece of pocket change. It was a circulating commemorative coin created to connect an everyday object with a major moment in French history. That is one of the reasons this coin attracts collectors today. When you hold one in your hand, you are holding a small piece of a much larger story, a story involving monarchy, revolution, political representation, national identity, and the birth of a new era in France. The standard 1989 French 1 franc commemorative coin was struck in nickel and had a weight of approximately 6 grams, a diameter of about 24 millimeters, and a thickness of roughly 1.7 millimeters. It was a round coin produced using traditional pressure striking techniques with a coin orientation. The coin was part of the French franc currency system, which remained in use until the introduction of the euro era. The standard issue was eventually demonetized on February 17, 2002, as France transitioned fully into the euro currency system. According to catalog information, the 1989 issue had a reported mintage of more than 5 million pieces, including coins associated with special collector sets. That production figure is important because it immediately tells us something about the normal coin. It is historically interesting, but it is not automatically rare simply because it is from 1989. Now, let us turn to the design, because this is where the coin becomes truly fascinating. The obverse presents the denomination within a wreath formed by 2 branches of laurel, surrounded by the inscription IPUBLIQUE Française. This arrangement immediately identifies the coin as an official issue of the French Republic. The reverse commemorates the convocation of the Estates General on May 5, 1789. The imagery refers to the 3 traditional estates of French society: the clergy, the nobility, and the Third Estate. These 3 groups played a central role in the political crisis that preceded the French Revolution. The reverse design therefore transforms a small metal disc into a historical illustration. Rather than showing a generic national symbol, the coin deliberately directs the viewer toward a specific event and date, allowing the owner to connect the physical object with the dramatic political developments of 1789. The design was created as part of the bicentenary commemorations, making the coin an interesting combination of everyday currency and historical memorial. This historical connection is especially important when understanding collector demand. Many people collect coins because of precious metal content, while others focus on rarity, condition, or minting errors. But commemorative coins add another dimension: historical storytelling. A collector interested in the French Revolution may want this coin because of its subject. A collector specializing in French francs may want it because it belongs to the final decades of the Franc era. A world coin collector may appreciate it as an example of late 20th century European coinage, and a modern commemorative collector may be attracted by the 1789–1989 connection. This broad collector appeal helps explain why the coin remains interesting even though millions were produced. One of the most important details to understand is the mint mark. Your information identifies the coin as having an F mint mark, but this point deserves careful attention. The standard catalogued 1989 French 1 franc Estates General issue is associated with the Monnaie de Paris, with French minting operations historically connected with Paris and Pessac. Catalogue references also identify a different small mark, known as the Mintmaster or Engraver General's Privy Mark, associated with Émile Rousseau during this period. In other words, the letter or symbol you see on a particular coin should not automatically be described as an F mint mark without examining its exact position and appearance. This is extremely important for collectors because a small letter can represent a mint designation, a privy mark, a designer's signature, or even part of the coin's normal lettering. Misidentifying a tiny symbol can lead to completely incorrect claims about rarity and value. This brings us to one of the biggest mysteries surrounding the coin you are researching: the possibility that the F could indicate something unusual. If your coin genuinely contains a distinctive F mark that does not match the standard catalog description, it should be examined carefully rather than immediately assumed to be a rare mint variety. The first step is to compare the exact location of the mark with recognized references. The second step is to check the coin's weight and diameter. The third is to inspect the lettering, edge, and overall design under magnification. Finally, the coin should be compared with authenticated examples of the same type. A genuine variety must be distinguished from ordinary wear, damage, scratches, tooling, or marks added after the coin left the mint. The manufacturing process itself helps explain why errors can occur. To create a coin, blank metal planchets are prepared, processed, and struck between dies under tremendous pressure. The dies carry the designs that are transferred onto the planchet. If a planchet is defective, if a die becomes damaged, if a die shifts during striking, or if a foreign object interferes with the striking process, the resulting coin can display an error. Collectors generally distinguish genuine mint errors from post-mint damage. This distinction is critical. A coin that has been bent, scratched, drilled, plated, polished, or chemically altered after leaving the mint may look unusual, but it is not necessarily a valuable mint error. On the other hand, a genuine off-center strike, major die break, broad strike, wrong planchet, or other documented minting error can be highly desirable, especially when the error is dramatic and clearly attributable to the minting process. The 1989 French 1 franc is therefore a coin where condition matters enormously. A heavily circulated example with scratches, dark discoloration, edge damage, and weak details will normally be worth far less than a sharply struck, well-preserved specimen. Collectors often use standardized grading systems to evaluate the condition of coins. Grades progress from heavily worn circulated pieces toward extremely fine, about uncirculated and uncirculated examples, with professional certification companies sometimes assigning numerical grades to high-quality coins. For a coin of this type, a truly pristine example with strong original surfaces can be much more attractive than a common circulated coin. However, collectors should remember that condition alone does not automatically turn a common coin into a $1,000 rarity. This is where the estimated $1,000 market value needs to be explained honestly. The figure of $1,000 should not be treated as the normal value of every 1989 French 1 franc coin. Catalog information for the standard issue indicates values dramatically below that level, with examples listed around the low dollar range depending on grade and condition. One catalog listing gives approximate values from around $1.10 for lower circulated grades to a few dollars for uncirculated examples. These figures are a useful reminder that the standard coin and an extraordinary coin are two very different things. A price near $1,000 would generally require a special explanation, such as an exceptionally rare error, a very unusual variety, an extremely high-grade certified example, or special collector issue that is fundamentally different from the ordinary circulation coin. There is another fascinating possibility that collectors should know about. The 1989 Estates General commemorative design also existed in special pied-fort and pattern forms. These were not simply ordinary circulation coins. Some were struck in precious metals and produced in very limited quantities. For example, catalog records identify a silver pied-fort weighing about 13.6 grams, a gold pied-fort weighing about 23.5 grams, and a platinum pied-fort weighing about 28.3 grams. These special pieces are dramatically different from the standard 6-gram nickel circulation coin and can have much greater collector interest because of their scarcity, materials, and special status. One gold pied-fort listing records a mintage of only 25 pieces, demonstrating how dramatically rarity can change the character and potential value of a coin. This distinction is essential for anyone who sees a headline claiming that a 1989 French 1 franc is worth $1,000. The question should always be, which 1989 1 franc? Is it the normal nickel circulation coin? Is it a proof? Is it a pied-fort? Is it a pattern? Is it a documented mint error? Is it a rare variety? Is it certified in an exceptional grade? Or is the price simply an unsupported internet estimate? These questions separate serious numismatic research from sensational claims. Collectors should also be cautious about auction stories. The fact that a rare French coin has sold for a large amount does not mean every similar-looking coin has the same value. Auction records can involve special editions, unique errors, precious metal pieces, or extraordinary grades. The strongest evidence for value is not an asking price on an online marketplace, but a documented completed sale involving a coin that is genuinely comparable in type, condition, rarity, and authenticity. A seller can ask $1,000 for almost anything. That does not mean someone will actually pay $1,000 for it. Authentication is therefore one of the most important parts of the collecting process. Start by weighing the coin with a precise digital scale. The standard nickel version should be close to 6 grams. Measure the diameter, which should be approximately 24 millimeters. Examine the edge and compare the overall thickness with reliable catalog references. Look closely at the typography and design details. Pay special attention to the location and shape of any small letter or symbol that is being described as an F-mint mark. Magnification can reveal whether the feature was part of the original design or is simply damage. If the coin is being presented as an extraordinary error or rare variety, documentation from a reputable specialist or professional grading service can become extremely important. One of the most common myths in modern coin collecting is that every old coin is automatically valuable. Age alone does not determine rarity. A coin can be more than a century old and still be common, while a much newer coin can be extraordinarily rare because of a tiny production mistake. The same principle applies here. The 1989 French 1 franc is now more than 3 decades old, but that does not automatically make every example expensive. Its value depends on the exact variety, condition, authenticity, rarity, and demand. The historical importance of the 1989 bicentenary certainly gives the coin a fascinating story, but the story and the market value are not always the same thing. Preservation is another factor that collectors should never ignore. If you own one of these coins, avoid aggressive cleaning. Do not polish it with household chemicals, abrasive materials, or metal cleaners. Cleaning can permanently damage the original surface and may reduce collector appeal. Instead, handle the coin by its edges and store it in a suitable inert holder or capsule designed for numismatic storage. Keep it away from excessive humidity, extreme temperature changes, and materials that can cause chemical reactions. For a common example, preservation is still worthwhile because it protects the historical object. For a potentially rare example, proper preservation becomes even more important because the surface condition can significantly influence desirability. From an investment perspective, the 1989 French 1 franc should be approached realistically. The standard circulation coin is generally a modest value collectible rather than a guaranteed investment. Its greatest strength is its combination of historical theme, attractive commemorative design, and connection to the final era of the French franc. The investment potential becomes more interesting when dealing with genuinely scarce varieties, authenticated mint errors, exceptional certified grades, or special precious metal pied-fort issues. These categories have a much smaller supply and may attract more specialized collectors. However, no coin should be purchased solely because someone claims it will become valuable. The best strategy is to learn the market, verify the coin, study comparable sales, and understand exactly what makes the individual piece different. There is also a fascinating story hidden in the transition from the franc to the euro. For generations, French citizens used francs in everyday life, from buying bread and newspapers to paying for transportation and household necessities. By the early 21st century, that familiar currency was disappearing from daily life. The 1989 1 franc, therefore, belongs to a transitional period in modern French history. It represents a time when the franc was still a living currency, while also commemorating events from 2 centuries earlier. In a sense, the coin connects 3 different moments: the Revolutionary era of 1789, the bicentennial celebrations of 1989, and the end of the franc era in the early 2000s. That is what makes this coin so interesting to me. It is not necessarily the metal itself that makes the 1989 French 1 franc worth studying. It is the story stamped into that metal. The coin commemorates a moment when the political foundations of France were changing forever. It was produced during a year when the nation looked back 200 years and reflected on its revolutionary past. Then, only a little more than a decade later, the currency represented by this coin would disappear from everyday transactions. Few ordinary objects can connect so many chapters of history in such a small space. So if you have a 1989 French 1 franc in your collection, take a second look. Check the weight, check the diameter, study the design, examine the edge, identify the exact location of the alleged F mark, and compare it with trusted references. Look for genuine mint errors or unusual varieties, but do not confuse damage with rarity. If you believe your coin is an exceptional specimen, consider professional authentication before accepting a high-value claim. And most importantly, remember that a reported $1,000 value should be treated as a possibility for a special and genuinely rare example, not as the standard value of every 1989 French 1 franc. The ordinary circulation issue is generally worth only a modest amount, while the truly exceptional pieces are valuable because of scarcity, condition, special composition, or documented rarity. The 1989 French 1 franc is a perfect reminder that coin collecting is not simply about finding a piece of metal and asking how much money it is worth. It is about discovering the story behind the object. It is about learning why a coin was created, understanding the people and events represented on its surfaces, recognizing the tiny details that separate one variety from another, and knowing how to distinguish genuine rarity from internet hype. Somewhere in a collection, an old drawer, or a forgotten box, there may be a coin that deserves a second look. And sometimes, the most interesting discovery is not a $1,000,000 treasure, but the realization that a small coin can carry centuries of history in the palm of your hand. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the 1989 France 1 franc coin and its fascinating connection to the bicentenary of the French Revolution, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Coin Collection 1 for more rare coins, historic coins, valuable varieties, mint errors, and hidden treasures from around the world. And now, I want to hear from you. Do you have a 1989 French 1 franc coin in your collection? Have you ever noticed an unusual letter, mint mark, error, or design difference on yours? Tell us in the comments, share this video with another coin collector, and keep checking those old coins carefully, because you never know when an ordinary-looking piece of history might turn out to be something truly extraordinary. Until next time, keep searching, keep learning, and keep discovering the stories hidden inside the world's coins, right here on Coin Collection 1.